Welcome into the Inside Carolina UNC player preview. I'm your host, Ross Martin, joined by Sherrell McMillan and Greg Barnes. We've been going right through all the transfers, and the final one, the last one for UNC to land, is Dawson Garcia, the 6'11", 230-pound big man who comes from Marquette. He was a freshman last year at Marquette. Started and played in all 27 games, averaged 13.0 points, 6.6 rebounds. Shot 48% from the field and 35.6% from three, and had a really good game in the Dean Dome when Marquette came in with Steve Wojciechowski as coach and beat the Tar Heels. Huge grab for UNC, kind of late in the process. Sherrell, you covered his recruitment when he was a recruit as a high school player to UNC, and then again as a transfer recruit. What can you tell us about what Dawson Garcia brings as a player? Because even I'm a little confused if he's at stretch four, if he's going to bang down low. What do you see from him this season?
I see him almost as a stretch five. And so I'll explain that. So Brian Snow, who used to be a national recruiting analyst for 24/7, he's now the director of recruiting at Penn State. We asked him back in the day, after Day'Ron Sharpe had committed to UNC, which of the bigs that North Carolina is recruiting in this class do you think fit the best beside Day'Ron Sharpe? And the options were Hunter Dickinson, Walker Kessler, and Dawson Garcia. And at the time, we didn't think UNC had a shot with Walker Kessler. He said, "Oh, it's obviously Dawson Garcia because he has a stretch ability." He's like, "I see him more as a stretch five because he's actually pretty good for a 6'11" guy at putting the ball on the off the dribble, taking the ball off the dribble, and then he can shoot from three as well." I think that is what UNC has him as. There'll be times where he plays with Armando Bacot. There'll be times when he plays with Manic. Maybe they'll switch between the 4 and the 5. But I think that's what it is that ability to stretch a defense, to take bigger guys and take them off the dribble. And you saw it in the late night scrimmage. That's what Hubert Davis wants his bigs to do. They flash into the paint for a second or two, and then if they have a chance to drive to the hole, it's theirs. So he has that skill offensively. Defensively, I think is where there might be some more questions. Hubert Davis has said he can guard 1 through 5. That's something I want to see too.
Greg, you saw him at the open practice. He's the tallest guy on the team. He's noticeably taller than a Bacot. Not as broad and heavy, but looks like a basketball player and definitely improves the look of this roster. How do you see Dawson Garcia fitting in to UNC this season? Does he start? Does he play alongside Bacot? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Rel termed it right there. He's kind of a stretch five. Just with the way this roster is constructed, I think Brady Manic, he's not going to play five. And so that really leaves Garcia as the only other option. And I do think you may see Leaky play a little bit of 4, but it's probably going to be more Justin McCoy. If you want to go small and you can slide Garcia in there with Bacot. So I think most of his minutes will come at the 5. He will get some playing time alongside of Bacot. But Armando clearly is the 5 on this team, is going to get a bulk of the minutes. How many minutes? We're going to have to see exactly how Hubert Davis handles his roster and rotational minutes. But his ability, I really think he's kind of what you're going to be looking at in terms of moving forward for that 5. A guy that he's not like Bacot where he's going to be on the block all the time. He's the guy that can slide out, knock down some jumpers. He can knock down a 3 if he needs to, but you're not necessarily going to count on him all the time for those kind of things. But he does have that skill set. So I think that's kind of a good look at what North Carolina's going to be aiming for in the years to come. And the days of guys like Armando Bacot are probably slimming down.
Yeah, when I was looking at the roster and seeing them in person, I was like, the days of Joel James, Sterling Manley, Brandon Huffman, even back to the earlier eras with just big 7-foot lumbering guys are over.
Kennedy Meeks,
Kenny Meeks, Bacot's pretty athletic. He can move and has nice. So he's probably the kind of the classic big man. The length they will recruit at that size. Sherrell, so how do you see the big man rotation happening? I know you talked about it a little bit there, but so Brady starts at the 4, you think, and then Dawson kind of rotates in at the 4 and the 5, or what do you? Because I always thought Dawson Garcia, like he's a talented guy, comes in and starts, but maybe not.
Yeah, you've got 3 really good players, and only 2 of them could start. And I think that's something Hubert Davis I'm sure there's a conversation they had before Garcia committed, and that, they're not going to promise you a spot, just because you're a highly rated transfer. There's two other highly rated or at least one other highly rated transfer already there. So I would think that he will come off the bench initially, but just because, and there's nothing against Garcia, he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but Manick is just such a perfect fit beside Baycott that I think those two and that chemistry, and even though was only I guess like a month and a half more that Manick got with Baycott than Garcia had, I think that time alone just builds chemistry tremendously, especially when they're playing pickup every single day. So that's why I think Manick will end up starting. But with Garcia, the good thing is that what he does is what North Carolina struggled with so much last year. You just go back to that Marquette game, and it was Garcia, at the top of the key. Day'Ron Sharp would close out fast, and Garcia would just go right by him for a layup or a dunk, or he would jab step and pull up for three. And I think that's the mismatch, against most centers that he has. He will be able to do a lot of work against centers, but those three are just going to play a large amount of minutes. And I think, to Greg's point, the roster is much more complete if you have Justin McCoy at the three, and then you have those three guys splitting minutes between the 5 and the 4.
And the other component of this too, Ross, is, what did Hubert Davis tell us in Charlotte at the ACC Media Day? He really likes the idea of playing 2 point guards at the same time, meaning Caleb Love and RJ Davis. Well, if you do that, Kerwin Walton's your best shooter on the team, probably your best scorer. Do you play him at the 3, which means you move Justin McCoy to the 4? And if you move Justin McCoy to the 4, what happens to the minutes there at the 5? So how Hubert, what he values most, we don't know. And that's going to shape both the front court and the back court. So a lot of options for sure, but how he chooses to handle that's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, and going through it, we said Brady Manick is a 4, and he's the only pure 4 on the roster if you consider Garcia and Baycott 5s and McCoy and Leakey 3s. So you might see more of that small ball lineup where McCoy and Leakey play some 4 in there as well, just to spread the time out. Will be interesting to watch, certainly, with these transfers and the positionless basketball we've been talking about here at Inside Carolina. That is the Dawson Garcia preview.